Hi, I'm Food Lady Dominique. Welcome to my kitchen. Today we are going to be making filled bread loaves made with einkorn wheat. If you are new to einkorn wheat, just real quick, it is the most ancient grain that we know of as humans. It has a different genetic makeup of gluten and also less gluten. And it's a type of gluten that a lot of us who are sensitive or even allergic to gluten can actually eat. Also, it is higher in protein, higher in minerals, and all of the great facts are going to be in the description so you can see why it's a terrific wheat to work with. But it is different than modern wheat, and you need to work it in a slightly different way. We're going to make a pull-apart Star Loaf with two different flavors and colors of dough. And we're going to fill it with some great savory ingredients like vegan feta, olives, and red pesto. As you can tell, I've already started. I'm full of flour because I mill my own einkorn berries and I sift them through a couple of different sizes of sifters so that I either take out some of the bran or most of the bran, and I do that so that I can keep some of the nutrition and great fiber of the bran, but also have a better rise in either the bread or the cakes that I make. You don't have to be as intense as I am. You can just simply buy your flours. For this recipe, if you want to make it exactly, I suggest that you use 2/3 all-purpose flour and 1/3 whole wheat flour. And then you will be using all of the same liquids. If you're just going to use the all-purpose flour, then just lessen the liquid just a little bit. The very first thing that you need to do, you either need to do it early in the morning and wait about 5 or 6 hours, or do it the night before. That's easier, and just let it rise overnight. You're going to make your leaven. For one loaf, your leaven is going to be 40 grams of sourdough and 130 grams of water. Mix those two until you get a creamy consistency. Since I use a stiffer starter, see my video on pasta madre, I use a fork and my fingers to break it all up. Then add 120 grams of flour, mix it thoroughly, and cover. Add 1/8 of a teaspoon of active dry yeast to 130 grams of warm water. Mix to dissolve, and then add 120 grams of flour. Mix that thoroughly until there's no more dry flour. Cover it and let it proof for at least 6 hours and no more than 24 hours. Right before you use it, really important, add another 1/4 teaspoon of active dry yeast. So this one, we are going to create 2 doughs because we're then going to intertwine them. And I am coloring them and flavoring them with matcha for the green, so a great superfood that's great for you and a fantastic taste. And the red we're going to do with beet powder and paprika. This adds a bit of sweetness and a great beet flavor. And then the paprika adds some smokiness and a little bit of heat. You want to start with your liquids and bring in your leaven into it. The sweetener is raw honey, and we're going to use only 20. And then my water, we're going to use 40 grams of that. Dissolve the honey. Make sure to get all of the crystals broken up. These doughs I'm going to use just slightly less liquid because I need it to hold its shape just a little bit more. And because I'm filling it with ingredients that have a lot of olive oil, it makes up for the slightly less moist of the dough. Once the honey is totally dissolved, then you're going to add your plant-based milk. I'm using macadamia, but you can go for coconut. You need something with a little bit more fat. And of course, you can do regular milk if you'd like. 85 grams of the milk. And now we're going to add the leaven. There we go. Mix it up until it's creamy. And now we're ready for the flour. We're going to start with our matcha flour. In this case, you don't want to put the flour on top and then the matcha, try to mix it up together. You're going to get a streaky bread. Put the matcha in to your flour before. The amounts are 300 grams of flour and 7 grams of the matcha, which is about 1 tablespoon. And mix it up so that it's well mixed throughout. Once it's mixed, put it in with your wet ingredients. Add in your salt. So I'm going for 2/3 of a teaspoon. Mix it in, and then you're going to mix it together. One of the reasons that I like working with a spoon or a spatula is you can use the back of the spoon to push the dough against the sides and pick up all of the rest of the flour. There we go. We need to let it rest. So I'm going to cover this one, and we go for the other one. Same exact process, just slightly different ingredients. 20 grams of honey, 40 grams of hot water. Dissolve the honey in the hot water. 85 grams of milk and lemon. Mix it up into a creamy consistency. Now your flour. 300 grams of flour. Then 6 grams of the beet, which is a heaping half tablespoon, and 4 grams of paprika, which is a heaping teaspoon. Mix it up. You're not going to see a lot of color when you're mixing it up just through the flour, but it'll come through once it gets wet. Okay, ready to go. Two-thirds of a teaspoon of salt. Work it through and mix the flour into your wet ingredients. Using the back of the spoon to move the dough through to pick up all of the dry flour is great. Now you might have some dry flour that you're going to work in better once you're kneading your dough. Time for it to rest and absorb water. Cover this one up as well. As soon as the 15 minutes are over, I'll see you for the first work of the dough, starting with the matcha. 15 minutes later, and the dough has had time to rest and absorb flour, your surface. And we're going to do a simple folding of the dough. It is not like regular wheat because it doesn't have A, the same gluten, B, as much of it. So you need to be gentler with it or else you're going to get a very rubbery bread. Remember, I used less liquid on these doughs, so they are going to be a little bit easier to work with. And you're going to pat it down. Take the top, fold it in one of the sides, the other side, fold it in, and the bottom, and fold it in. What you're trying to do is make sure that you're working all of the flour and water together and that it's not lumpy. I repeat it twice. This is a slight change from my last bread video because after experience, I've noticed that if I work the dough just a little bit more, it rises better. Dough 2, I'm going to go back to rest another 15 minutes. Scrape up any of the other dough so you don't mix in the colors. And rest time again. 15 minutes and we work it the second time. This time on the second work, I'm actually going to knead the dough just a little bit. Okay, get it all out there. So if you've seen my sourdough bowl video, I used to just fold the dough. I have found that if I give it a little bit of a kneading on the second go round, it actually has a better rise. So what I do is I keep folding it in for about 45 seconds until I can feel that it is nice and smooth. And if I push it in, there you go, smooth, and it bounces back. Put it again to rest. And same with my Beet-Paprika dough. So as you can see, I did not sift the beet powder. So it does have little granules in there, and they're breaking up now that I'm kneading it. It's all right. It's just going to give a punch of color and flavor in these places, but why not sift it so that you have everything uniform? I get too impatient. Okay, all done. Another 15 minutes. And here is the last fold before it gets set aside to proof. And what you're doing is you're just checking that it's nice and smooth dough, and it is. So I'm going to fold the top in, the other side in this way, and then I'm going to just twirl it into a nice even ball. There you go. I use the same bowl to proof it in. It's fine even if it's got a bit of the dry dough around it. The important thing is you take the same towel that you've been covering it with and you wet it. And that's how you put the dough to proof, so that it has moisture on top. Proofing should take between 3 to 4 hours. I do have a proofing oven, so when you have that, it takes closer to the 3 hours. And what you're looking to see is that the dough doubles at least. And I'll show you once it's proofed. The doughs are proofed, and now it's time to fill them, form them, and do the shorter second proof. Now, you'll notice that when I finished the doughs, it was dark out, and now it's light out, because I have been testing out doing a cold proof. So basically the minute that I had the doughs ready after I had done all the folds, I put them in the refrigerator overnight, and then I bring them out in the morning, I warm them up, and I let the proof finish like that. And that's just simply because sometimes I don't have time to do everything during the day. So if I want to start a bread and I'm starting it later in the day, I can leave it in the fridge overnight, and it's been working great. Now I'm going to put together what I'm going to use to fill these breads. I'm just going to do a very simple savory filling. I'm actually using a ready-made red pesto. This is a company called Vantia, and they make a beautiful one, which is just sun-dried tomatoes, some garlic, some olive oil, and so it's nice and simple. Then I've chopped up a different grouping of black and green olives. And then I'm going to use feta crumbles. In this particular version of it, I'm actually going to use a vegan feta crumble. This Follow Your Heart vegan feta crumbles are amazing. You wouldn't even know it's vegan. And I've been using a lot of vegan cheeses lately, the ones that I think actually taste like cheese, because eating less milk products for me is better, because I am sensitive to whey. So that's why I'm doing that. But you can use regular feta crumbles. You can also go towards a blue cheese if you want to. Flour on our surface. We start with the matcha dough, bring it out onto our floured surface. This dough is going to be a little bit easier to work with because if you remember, I made it less moist. Now, when you make einkorn bread, slightly you pull back on the moisture that you use. The issue with that is that the bread is going to be a little bit more solid. When you're using fillings that have a good deal of olive oil, cheesy things, etc., that actually works quite well because the filling gives the moistness to the bread. So that's why it's okay for this bread to have a little less moisture. And that's necessary because you'll see forming it, is a little bit more work. Okay, once I flattened it down like this, I make sure to get it unstuck, and then I flatten it out a little bit more. I take my insert. So for this, I'm using a tart pan, which is 11 inches across. If I had one that was 11 and a half, a little bit closer to 12, I would like that better. And here we go. We're gonna put our round right in the middle of that. Now we're gonna put in our fillings before we flatten the other dough. I'm gonna start with the pesto. Just mix it up a little bit when you open up the jar. I'm using about half of this jar. The smell is so wonderful. It's like the smell of the sun to me because it's that heavy-duty umami tomato smell. See, I think I'm going to use my spatula, make it a little bit faster. You just want to spread it out as evenly as you can, leaving an edge around. And you'll see why in a moment. Once that's nicely spread, put down your olives and add your cheese. You can see how you can make so many different combinations with this. You know, this could be mozzarella if you wanted, a little bit of tomato paste rather than the pesto. Okay, that's nicely spread. Try to get it evenly and as far out to the edge as you can. And we are going to put this to the side. And now it's time for the paprika beet dough. You can see this has also doubled. You see all the nice bubbles showing up on top. And you are going to flatten this one out into a circle as well. You want to pat and stretch. A little bit like if you're making a pizza. And you're trying to make this circle just slightly larger than the other one because it'll contract once you put it on top. Bring your bottom layer back over here, turn this around and put it down on top like that. And you want the layer to stick onto the bottom, so it's better if you put the non-floured part down. You're going to wet your fingers and you're going to wet that edge where you didn't put filling all the way around. And now once that's wet, you're just going to squeeze the edge all the way around. Take any little cup that you have, glass, etc., and you place it down into the center. It is going to help you keep your cuts organized and centered, and it also makes a nice little design in the middle. Now, what you do is you make 4 cuts. So I usually do one side and then the other, just so that I keep as even as possible. So now you've cut it into quarters. Now you're going to cut each quarter into 3 pieces. Just like this. Once you've done that, you will take 2 sections. Make sure that they're well divided from each other. And you are going to twist them towards each other. 1 twist, 2 twists, and then you bring the end together. So you're bringing the green ends together. And you give it a nice pinch. Go to another section, twist towards each other, 1 twist, 2 twists, and bring it together. If it's a little too dry, put some water on the inside edge when you're squeezing it together. And then you take off your little bowl or glass and see what a beautiful star that makes. So we're going to put this back in the tart rim and we're going to let this rise. Those fourths, you can actually make 4 cuts and make them smaller and make smaller pull apart sections. Now I'm going to cover this. The second proof takes about an hour. You want it to come up and fill out basically the whole container. I'll see you in an hour. Let's take a look at our star. Here we go. So see how this has increased in size And here's where you see it most, where we made the cuts and brought them out. You can see all sorts of bubbles and air, and you can see how much thicker they've gotten. And so that's what you're looking for. I like to put a little bit of a coating on top just so you get a bit of shine. And I use this superfood creamer because it has a good amount of fat. We're going to coat this with just the creamer. Great. All coated and ready for the oven at 450 degrees, and it's going to cook between 27 and 30 minutes until it's got a nice golden brown. I'll show you exactly what it looks like at the end. Our breads are ready and cooled. I'm just going to do one of those big sections because I'm hungry and I'm going to eat the whole darn thing. There you go. So you see how you've got the mix of the two colors, you've got the fillings going all the way through, and nice airiness on the bread. So here are our filled breads. Please play with them. You know, both here on the sweet side or on the savory side, there's so many different fillings that you can try. And let me know what you tried and how it went. Send me pictures down in the comments below. It would be great to see other people's ideas of what they could fill it with. I look forward to how you make them, to your questions, to your comments. Please subscribe, click the notification button so that you know when my new videos are coming out, and also give me a like. That helps me out a lot in the YouTube world so that more people get to see my videos. Thank you so much. Buon appetito. Enjoy.